continue here just doing some experiment on knowledge graph using data fabric table as well as local table. So to experiment, I just created a new table in my BigQuery environment. And from it, I created a data fabric table. I wanted to store in BigQuery some additional employee information, such as food preference. To store, imagine you have a bunch of employee information in ServiceNow in the sys_user table or in the employee profile, and say your organization has data in a Snowflake or BigQuery or Databricks as additional data in external system, not stored in ServiceNow, but let's say you want to leverage it from a ServiceNow perspective. You may be using some specific AI HR agent, so you want those autonomous AI agent to be able to grab that information for whatever reason. So it would be cool to have a knowledge graph that you can query and make sense of the data. Queries, for example, the food information, the specific food preference for users in department ABC. As you are maybe organizing events, things like that for your employee, you can get access to those information. So you can automate more if you have access to the data. So here I do have my established connection and a BigQuery connection there. And just for that little experiment, I created one table. One table that I'm going to be using is my employee food preference. So I'm going to edit it so you can understand what I've been doing with it. So it contains a bunch of users' preference for food, right? Do I like spicy food? Do you have any specific religious diet? Any specific dietary preference? Maybe some of my employees are vegetarians, things like that. This information may be stored in an external system. That's the whole point here I want to make. But you may need to query that information as you are setting up event and you're using maybe some automated agentic workflow to set up some events. And you need to access that information. So you want to be able to use prompt and NLU to query the data. That's what I'm going to try to prove out here using this. So it's all good. I have my source table from BigQuery, my target table that's been created in ServiceNow. It's a data fabric table. What I've done is I referred the username in my BigQuery data to the sysuser table in ServiceNow. That's how I kind of try to link those two tables. And then that's all I do, right? I'm going to open the list. Once it's created, I'm going to open the list. So you can see an example of values there. So it's going to obviously list my information as if I was in BigQuery. Right, so that's just a list of information, and that's about it, right? With that information, what do I want to do? I want to be able to query it from a knowledge graph perspective. So I went into knowledge graph. Hopefully, I'm gonna show you what I've done in pretty much step by step. So for this example, I've reused an out-of-the-box knowledge graph that was a user graph here. So I went here and I did copy graph. That knowledge graph, you can use it to query information such as who has, I'm not sure if this is gonna work, who has Maria, let's say Maria Davis as manager. I'm not sure if this query is going to work particular. I haven't tested what this kind of works, right? So this returns some information based on the knowledge graph here. And the person who created the knowledge graph has linked the different nodes, I think we call them, and configure them. I didn't want to build that from scratch. This works very well, but I wanted to build on top of it. So I did copy graph, and I'm gonna go back to the list of knowledge graph, and I called it WGF user, and I just added one node. So I went there and clicked add node, and I'm not gonna redo it here, but when I clicked add node, I was able to select my data fabric table that I reviewed with you. And that's all I've done. Now I configure the information that I want to be able to query from a knowledge graph perspective. So I may have some specific query and say, hey, I want the list of employees that are vegetarian and reports to Maria Davis, for example. Because I'm preparing for an event, I want to make sure I'm getting them covered in terms of food preference, things like that. And I'll be able to do this because this knowledge graph kind of already map where to get those information based on the different relationship we have between those tables and based on the selection of the column that I have available to me to query. So I simply added this node there, which is data fabric table. And now if we test it, I can not only get food preference, but I can put a simple query here, put my prompt here, list of food preference of user with manager Maria Davis. There may be a better way to say it in English, but let's see if it works. So it only returned 2 because I only have reference, or I only have a food preference record for only those users in BigQuery, so it returns 2, but I can guarantee you that they report to Maria Davis, those 2 users, because I've said this in my local instance. I went to the users and I made sure that they report to Maria Davis. So I don't know if you can see it there. If I just go to the list of users, you can see Maria Davis here. So I've set this up so just to make sure it works. Actually, it would be interesting to set this to someone else. And I will only have 1 record, just to prove that it's not kind of data that is looking at data both locally and from my data fabric table. So if I use the same prompt, it's not a prompt, same query, where I was here. Hopefully, let's see. It should only return one user. Yeah, it's because now I only have 1 user that report to Maria Davis and also has some food preference recorded in my BigQuery table. So this works. This works well. Still getting to know that what can we do with the knowledge graph, but I can see from an AI agent perspective. Now we can leverage this to make sense of the data.